With a glamorous wife, but Syria's leader may be even more brutal than his infamous father. So what makes Bashar al-Assad tick? Brian Todd has been looking into this part of the story for us. What are you finding out, Brian?
Wolf, Bashar al-Assad is by most accounts often pleasant, even charming on the outside. It's when he's out of sight, making critical decisions with those closest to him, that he acts with cold, brutal calculation. This time, however, those calculations may have betrayed him. Bashar al-Assad, some analysts say, may have badly misread the signals. Believed it when his cronies told him President Obama wouldn't enforce his red line on chemical weapons. A staggering miscalculation, experts say, driven by Assad's own unpredictable swings of behavior.
Bashar al-Assad, unlike his father, is quite erratic. He's quite moody. He goes from one side to the other. Bouts of rationality and irrationality.
Andrew Tabler is among few Westerners to gain access to Assad's inner circle. He worked with Assad's wife, Asma, running a charity in Syria, and has met with Bashar al-Assad. He describes Assad as delusional, conspiracy-minded, but also persuasive, coming across in interviews as the antithesis of a murderous dictator. When CNN's Christiane Amanpour asked him in 2005 about reports that he threatened Lebanon's prime minister,
first of all, it's not my nature to threaten anybody. I'm very quiet person. I'm very frank, but I wouldn't threaten.
And in 2011, when ABC's Barbara Walters pressed him on whether he'd ordered his forces to fire on the opposition.
They are not my forces. They are military forces belong to the government.
Okay, but you...
I don't own them. I'm president.
Okay.
I don't own the country. So they're not...
No, but you have to give the order.
No, no, no.
Not by your command?
No, no, no. We don't have... Nobody, no one's command. There was no command to kill or to be brutal.
What do you make of that bearing? He's so polite and soft-toned.
I think he's a master of deception. I think that the regime, the package of Bashar and his wife Asma, is very seductive. And it draws you in. How could someone who seems so reasonable command such a horrific regime?
Illustrating what Tabler calls Assad's two faces, he was trained as an ophthalmologist. He has Facebook and Instagram accounts, has enjoyed being seen with his glamorous wife out on the town, from Aleppo to Paris. But from his bunker, he's overseen the killing of tens of thousands of his own people. What's he thinking now?
He's going to think about, how am I going to react to those strikes? What we can see from past strikes by the Israelis is that actually Bashar does very, very little in terms of a direct response. But over time, he might carry out other kinds of attacks on American assets.
That means the militant group Hezbollah, a key ally of al-Assad's, considered a terrorist group in the West, might carry out some kind of asymmetrical attack on American interests. Al-Assad is likely talking to them about a response to the American strikes, the possible American strikes, right now, experts say, along with his other close friend, Iran. Wolf?
You know, Brian, as frightening as Bashar al-Assad might be, some experts on Syria say he's actually not as bad as his own brother. Is that right?
That's right. Al-Assad's younger brother, Maher, analysts say, is even more brutal than Bashar. He runs a key military unit. He also oversees a paramilitary unit called the Shabiha, which means ghosts. They crack down on the opposition and they patrol Syria's borders. They're a pretty nasty unit. And this Maher is said to be even more brutal than his brother and a very heavy influence on him.
Brian Todd, thanks very much. We just heard Brian Todd's report. Let's go a little bit deeper right now with Andrew Tabler. He was in Brian's report. He's an expert on Syria at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, also the author of the book In the Lion's Den, an eyewitness account of Washington's battle with Syria. Just, because you studied all of the Assads, shall we say, who's more brutal, the son, Bashar al-Assad, or the father, Hafez al-Assad? Because we remember what happened in the early 80s in Hama, when 20 or 30,000 fellow Syrians were slaughtered within a matter of a few days.
I think they're actually equally brutal, historically, but Bashar al-Assad, much more unpredictable than his father. His father, for all of his faults, was somebody who that